going to let him in. Lord Spaghetti.
That's a good name.
Mom Spaghetti.
Not that.
No.
I mean, unless it's your mom's. I bet your mom makes some dank spaghetti.
Oh, what do you know about my mom's spaghetti?
I don't know nothing. I'm just saying, with your Italian heritage,
Yeah.
I bet it's fine. Is that? I thought that was a still.
What up?
Imagine we had to talk to you like that the whole time. You were just like, how's it going, dude?
Oh, it's going.
Welcome to Comics and Chronic.
Well, welcome. This is my first time meeting you. I hear you and Anthony are familiars.
Yes.
Familiar. What a word.
Who's the vampire, me or him?
I don't know. That face.
You're closer to Staten Island, so.
That's true.
Yeah, I guess that makes me the vampire. I'm probably paler too. I'm pretty pale.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I was born in Washington, D.C., but I live in Tennessee now.
Oh, nice. What part of Tennessee?
Knoxville.
Nice. I've never been to Knoxville, but I hear they have a pretty cool comedy scene.
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't either. I haven't been, but I've done a bunch of comedy in like Chattanooga and right over the border in North Carolina, Asheville and places like that. But I just don't know people in Knoxville, but I've heard great things from like touring comics.
I mean, it's fine.
Nice.
There's nothing special here. This is the problem. It's super cheap to live here. It's about it.
Like we talked about on your podcast, I just knew that Kane was the mayor.
Yeah, he's a fucking moron.
That's about it.
For sure.
Too many chair shots to the head.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same reason I'm still living in West Virginia is cheap living, baby.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say too many chair shots to the head.
Oh, no, but also, yeah, probably.
I went to Morgantown one time. That's the only time I've ever been to West Virginia.
Oh, that's where I live.
Oh, okay. WVU.
Sick.
Yeah, WVU, baby.
Party town.
It is a party town. It's definitely chilled out. When was the last time you were here?
Probably when I was in college. So that was fucking 2007 to 2011. So somewhere in that time frame.
Damn, yeah. It's chilled out a lot since then.
Yeah.
I moved here in 2015, and it was still like #1 party school in the nation and stuff like that. And then I'd say like within 2.5 years, it was the kind of thing that like the police were constantly busting up parties and tear gassing students. And it's just like the dynamic is drastically different. I also maybe this is wrong and I'm just like not in touch, but I don't think Gen Z party as hard as our generation did.
I was not a partier, but like I was around people who did.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's possible. They just sit at home and party.
Yeah. I just think that they're more like into things like smoking weed and like being healthy, and I don't know, not things that I'm interested in.
You make it sound so bad.
Sorry, I want to kill my liver as soon as I can.
That's what it sounds like. Well, what's up, everybody? We're here on Comics and Chronic. We got Alex Osborne in the house. He has a comic out right now called Polar Destroyer. So we talked on Twitter. I was actually on your podcast, What's Your Spaghetti Policy?
Yep.
That's a fantastic name.
Yeah, it's a great name.
That's a fantastic name. What's the... Is it? Did you?
Yeah, it's an Always Sunny reference.
Oh, okay. What is the topic of your pod?
There are no topics.
You just talk about whatever you want?
I've got this co-host. His name's Jacob, and he's an enigma. He's an odd creature. And so it's just me trying to steer this like train wreck every week. We normally have like a rotating third chair that like we always try to change the dynamic of every week. But
nice.
He's like infamous like for eating cereal in the shower, like that kind of like
nice
weird shit. So
yeah, hey man, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. You know what I mean?
Like it's fine if he wants to do it, but his whole thing is like he's like it saves time. People drink beer in the shower. Why can't I eat a bowl of cereal in the shower? And
sometimes I'll have a cup of coffee in the shower. Honestly.
Well, you're speaking his language now.
Yeah, Cody's our enigma, and then our other co-host is Jake. He's kind of an enigma too. So we're all enigmas here.
It's fine.
Yeah,
I gravitate towards those sort of people, anyways.
Yeah. some international men of mystery.
There you go.
You know,
Austin Powers. Okay.
I don't know how international we are.
No, we're not. We're all United States.
Tennessee, West Virginia, the Bronx. International.
That's a good mixing bowl.
Yeah.
Two sides of the war there.
How long have you been? Yeah, exactly. So how long have you been in Tennessee?
Oh God, too long.
Nice.
My parents like split up once, then they got back together, and then they split up again, and then I guess it was like I've lived in Tennessee longer than I lived in Virginia, but it's just one of those like I can live anywhere. Like I'm not married to a geographical location. My wife's from here, so her parents are here. That's why we're here.
Nice.
It's whatever, you know.
Hell yeah.
Do you find how's the comic book scene over there?
It's pretty good. We've got a couple of good shops. Like we have 3 different shops. Like we have one shop that's more. It's a ton. I mean, like they have tons of graphic novels. Like it's like a bookstore more than a comic shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like they have like trades of like stuff that just like nobody carries, and that's pretty rad. And then like there's my shop, which is Snake Eyes, and it's all mostly like new stuff. He's got trades here and there, but it's mostly deals in just like, you know, like newly releases. And then we have like another shop that has like a mix of new and, you know, old long boxes and shit. So like it's just like, you know, it's all spread out. So it's the stereotypical like, you know, Barnes and Nobles and all that other shit too. So
yeah. Is Knoxville, because Knoxville's what, like 2 or so hours from Asheville?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. We're 3 hours from Atlanta, 3 hours from Nashville, 3 hours from Lexington.
Yeah.
We're all over. We're close to everything. 4 hours from Cincinnati.
Nice. That's dope, honestly.
Yeah.
What's the legal status of weed over there?
It ain't.
A no-no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Tennessee is hard on weed.
They're hard on everyone that's not white.
Yeah.
We're being honest.
Yeah, it's a fact.
And women. They don't like women here either.
No. Yeah, Tennessee's like got, I'd say like, if not the definitely top 5 most conservative laws in the country.
Yeah, it's awful. Marsha Blackburn might be the worst person on the planet Earth. Yeah. But this is not a political podcast, so.
No.
We're getting there.
We have a mayor of this town. We were talking, you know, he's had a little too many chair shots to the head. So like,
yeah.
You know, he made a whole entire career wearing a mask, and then got really pissed off when like there was a mask mandate, and it was just like,
that's so funny.
Doesn't make any sense, bro.
Well, I guess I'll try to transition into your comic, because that's what we're here to discuss. I read it today because I'm a procrastinator.
Okay.
But it was sick, man. I'm not just saying that because you're on the pod. Like the art, dope. The storyline, dope. The twist at the end, fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. That was a really cool twist.
Yeah.
Really cool twist.
So wait, by the way, should we spoilers or no spoilers? Should we try to talk about it without giving away?
It's that's your call, man. It's your show.
No, but it's your book. I just
we tend to do, just because when we talk about things, we give an analysis of it. So we tend to do spoilers in our thing. But if you don't want people to be spoiled,
yeah, we could avoid it.
I don't care either way, to be honest with you. It's not. Okay, it's totally your call.
We're gonna get into spoiling.
Yeah. So spoilers ahead.
Spoiler disclaimer if you've not read it.
Yeah, but also, even if you listen to this pod, you should get this comic. It's a great.
Oh yes,
it's a great first issue. I'm excited to. So this was entirely crowdfunded, correct?
Yes. If you do want to pick it up, it's Polar Destroyer, one word, .bigcartel.com. I have a regular cover, I have variants, and I also have a digital. So that's all I have right now. It was entirely crowdfunded, and that is an intimidating thing to think about, especially if you've never done one. I don't think people, speaking from my own experience, I don't think people realize the amount of work that goes into not just a Kickstarter, but putting together a fucking comic book. Because we think, oh yeah, you know, it's you write a script and you give it to an artist and like you do this, but like there's just like an insane amount of work that is never accounted for, and just like stuff that happens that is
for sure
beyond your control that you can do nothing about except just wait. And I'm a very transparent person, maybe to a fault. Like I'll just tell people like, hey, look, this is what's up. Like, you know, whatever. We missed our deadline twice, full transparency. Cause like, you know, it just shit happens. Not like artists are great and they can be a little slower if they need to, because I mean, you saw the art, like it's incredible. Like it's really good and it's worth the wait.
Agreed.
But like the amount of stuff that he had to go through, like his computer crash, lost everything for 3 weeks, and then like a hurricane and then a flood. And then it's just like one thing after another. And then, then you get to the printing process and it's like, oh, all my, I have one proof that's sent and another one that's not sent. So that like screws up my entire shipping process because I can't ship them out until I get everything. And it was just like, it's just like, because they know, like they told me that they shipped the print or the proof. They never did. Like they lied to me. Like there's no way that you sent it. And so it just took like an extra week of everything and getting it. But like the print turned out great. So like I can't really complain. It's just like you're like so close to the finish line. And it's like, oh my God, like, bro, But where do you want to start? You want me to start at the beginning?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
How does Polar Destroyer, where does it start?
So I worked at Hobby Lobby of all places. Nice. And it was just like, a retail job. They paid really well at the time. I think back into like 2012, I was getting paid $18 an hour. Just like, and
damn.
You do everything by hand. So that's part of the reason why, because you earn it. It's like, they're like allergic to computers and like systems and shit. And it wasn't until I left that they had an iPad that you would like do your order form, and like literally had to go through every single item in my department and like count it every week. Dude, it was like asinine stuff. Anyways, so like on truck day, I had the biggest department. So mine was always the last one to be done because they would finish all the other ones and then, send everybody back to help me. And like me and my the guy that ran the department with me, we were just like bullshit one day. I was just like, that's what you do to pass the time. And I don't know. I saw this like random picture on the internet one time of like this polar bear like fucking mowing down these penguins, and I'm like, that's rad. So you just start like spinning gears in your head, and like we're sitting there doing freight and stuff. And then I was like, oh man, that'd be really cool if you did this. Really cool. Oh man, what if it's kind of like Terminator or Rambo? And then just like starts going, and like everyone probably does that working mundane jobs, but it was just one of those things that like I could not get it out of my head. And so like over time, like I just would like, I'd get like random spurts of, oh shit, like I'm gonna jot this down. I'm gonna write this whole outline, oh man, here's like the first saga and the second saga. And like, you just jotting shit over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I finally got this guy to commission it. His name's Rick Celis. It's Celies. And I saw, and it was like Batman the Animated Series was his art style. And I was like, man, you know what? Like, I'm gonna pay this guy a commission and see if he could just like throw together, this fucking polar bear that's like half cyborg. And then he did, and like, we went back and forth. I was like, okay, like what about an enemy? Okay, so like imagine a penguin if it was Bane, and then he did that, and so then like that's 001, and then I was like, okay, so then I was like, well, I need a real bad, like a big bad guy. So I was like, put this penguin inside of a mech suit, like kind of like Dr. Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog. So like
big Robotnik vibe.
Yeah. So like that was the pitch. And like he did them all. And then I was like, okay, these are rad. So then I just like sat on it for years. Like I didn't do anything with it. Life gets in the way, had a kid, all this other stuff. Then I got kind of quasi serious probably in like June of 2022. It's like, we're all coming out of COVID and stuff. And I was like, well, let me revisit this. And then I started to refine it a little bit and finally got it down to like a tangible, not a tangible, but like a concise, what would become the first issue. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to disparage anybody who does Kickstarter because that shit is hard. And like when you put stuff out there, whatever, but it's like a lot of stuff on Kickstarter looks the same. And I was like, I don't want that art style. It's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to cut any corners as far as like, I'm not going to sacrifice art. I'm not going to sacrifice any of these things because I never know I don't know if it's going to succeed. I don't know if it's ever going to go past where, it may fail on a Kickstarter. I don't know, but I will know that I have put my best foot forward.
Right. This might be your one shot at making a comic.
That's pretty much what it was. You only get a chance to make a first impression one time. Right. So it's just like, okay, well, and then I was just like searching Reddit for a couple of days and I came across this guy named Hugo Toronzo and I was like, damn, this dude is like rad. And I messaged him. I was like, hey, can you like do a comic cover for me? And then that's what became the regular cover, which is I call the orange cover because it has an orange background.
Nice.
And then I was like, have you ever done interiors before? I got it. And it was fucking dope. Yeah, that right there. It's so cool. And I just like saw it, and like that was in October of 2022, maybe September. And I just like held on to it, and like I showed my wife, and like she was like kind of like taken aback. She's like, why did you like hide this? This is really cool. And I was like, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those things. Because I told so many people over time about this, like, oh, this would be really cool, and then like, everyone's like super supportive when it's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it becomes an actual thing and you have to pay the piper. That's when like you kind of see how supportive people really are.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And,
trust me.
Yes.
I went to a local con here in October of 2022, and it was like old school, like inside of like a not a Holiday Inn conference center, but like similar to those vibes, like old school, like old school. And like there was a couple of like local people that had set up. And again, I'm not here to disparage anybody because that shit is hard and do what you can do. But I saw this person who had like 4 or 5 books out, and like I'm just like, dude, like I can do this, man. Like I know I can do this. And so then I messaged Hugo back, and I was like, hey, like, what's your rate for interiors? And he told me, and I was like, fuck. Like, that's probably fair based on what he told me. But I was like, okay. So, and he told me, he's like, get a issue 1, start to finish, write an outline, like, like a whole script, and like, let's go from there. And I was like, okay. So then I handed it to him in February and paid him for 4 pages. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just going to launch Kickstarter. And so I just started getting stuff together, and I was like, okay, well, I found Eamon Winkle to do a variant for me. And I was like, okay, what's my big tier going to be? Oh, okay. I'm going to make a 3D bust and have it hand painted. Cause I'm crazy. Like, who does that? Like, it's just like the most insane thing ever. And I had to pay for an STL file, and that was like $500. And it's like, okay, I'm going to make 10 of these things. Great. It was an overly ambitious thing, but it's one of the raddest things I've ever seen in my life, to have this character that like I basically came up with in a fucking bust like this big. I should have grabbed it just to show you.
You sent me the picture though, and that looks sick.
But Cody's not seen it, I don't think. But it's dope. It's a 3D printed, hand painted resin bust, and that was crazy. I limited it to 10 people, and that was a whole process too. But like I was like, yeah, this is cool. Everyone's gonna love this, and so. I was like, okay, I'm going to launch it in May. And I did. I had no idea what I was doing, did everything on my own. And then I was like, well, I've got to account for shipping. I've got to account. Okay, so I've got this print that's not an 8x10. Like I've got to ship that in a poly mailer. Well, I know like with the next one, I'm not doing poly mailers. I'm going to do like actual like comic box, like shipping boxes. Just because poly mailers are not that great and stuff can get bent, but it's like I didn't have any other way to put this odd shaped print, which is signed by Eamon, in anything. And like you just have to do all these things or whatever. And then like I launched it, and it successfully funded. I'm fortunate enough to know Jed McKay. He backed it.
Hell yeah.
Writer, he's writer of Moon Knight and Doctor Strange, upcoming X-Men, Avengers, all that stuff. But the one that really got it was Cliffy B, creator of Gears of War.
That's so sick.
A buddy of mine had like just, having a support group that is like there for you and literally has your back. Again, it's like when the idea becomes a thing and you put yourself out there and you're like, your ass is on the line. You sort of find out who's there, who's ready to like, bring you up with them. And so he had just like randomly tweeted Cliffy, and Cliffy was like, yeah, this looks rad. Okay. And then like he retweeted it, and it's basically what got it funded. And then like I had him on my podcast later, and he's like, I have no recollection of this. I was like, I don't give a shit, whatever.
If it helped, hell yeah.
Yeah, but I've since like I talk to him on the regular now. I'm not like name dropping, but like he's received the book and all sorts of things like that. So,
nice.
And then like it gets funded, and then you're like, now what, right? But again, going back to, I only had 4 pages when I launched the book. That's probably crazy. Like, but again, you have to balance how do you again, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. You just like manage whether like, okay, here's my proof of concept. And then I'm basically everything that I learn and everything that I make from this Kickstarter is going straight to the artist. And then everything else I'm paying for. I'll pay for the shipping. I'll pay for the books. All this other stuff. Like I'll sell this. I'll sell that. I just like you do all these things and you sort of like tighten the budget a little bit, and you learn which ways and like what to buy in bulk and what not to do and how to do this. You just like learn all these crazy things that you just never thought you would ever need to know. And so I did well enough in all of that, and like I've always been good at managing money because I grew up like super poor, so like I just always had to stretch the dollar, and like I've been able to save enough to where I can pay for like 10 pages right now for issue 2, but I still have to do a Kickstarter because I still have to pay artists to do covers and all this other stuff that I want to do as well. And like the whole point is like I've never set out to do this to be like, oh, this is my start in the industry. Like, yeah, I'm going to write comic books for a living. And like, that's great if that's what you want to do. But I just did it just because I fucking wanted to. And I just had the ability to do it. And I was just like, what we live for like 80 years if we're lucky. And most of us don't ever get to do anything creative like this. So like, fuck it. Just do it. Like, just jump in.
And you should be proud of it. It's a great,
you should be, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book, a fun read, simultaneously like lighthearted, but also like very heavy and dark, hyper violent. It's so fun. So fun.
It harkens back to what we all sort of grew up with in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like that's what it sort of like represents.
For sure. It reminded me of like kind of like almost Jim Lee-esque artistically.
Oh, I'm sure that Hugo would love that.
And like, yeah, I thought it was just great. The art was fantastic. It's a fun story.
Yeah.
I loved seeing like a jacked penguin. There was just something about it. I was just like, it was just fucking hilarious. It was really funny. Also like the vibes of the polar bears before they get wiped out, it's almost like gives me like the way that the garb and stuff, it's almost like Turok-esque, except they're animals, you know what I mean?
It's more like primitive versus like machines, right?
Yeah.
Because like the penguins realize, and then the bunny rabbits and all these other, if you look at it from like our perspective, polar bears are the king, right? Like they feast on all these other smaller creatures, like they're the kings of the north. And so there is no way that a penguin can take a polar bear in a straight up fight. So like they, go into this technology and experimentation, and they do these things in order to like combat the primitive force that is the polar bears. And then they get, spoilers, the polar bears get a little overwhelmed there.
A little.
Yeah, it's fucked. Everyone dies.
Super fun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, this is Cody's favorite thing, when families are torn apart and they're killed and there's like one person left to just be sad. That Cody loves that shit.
I do. I'm a fan of that thing.
That dynamic.
Yeah.
Is it because it hits close to home?
No, I mean, my family was torn apart through divorce. So maybe.
Not by penguins.
Yeah, not by penguins slaughtering them. Although that would have been a pretty cool backstory to have.
Yeah.
So like people have always asked me like, are you going to do another one? Yes. Issue 2. I just finished the script for issue 2 yesterday. Gave it to my artist and gave it to my editor. That's another thing too. Like 2 weeks before the digital print is ready, I basically hired a letterer to redo everything because I didn't like the direction. I didn't like the way it looked, and I was like, I've already went this far. Like I'm not gonna half-ass this shit. Like I'm gonna have to just again take out of my budget. I'm gonna pay. And luckily I knew a guy who had sort of like helped me out like right at the very end, and like it just made the books, because like to us people who read comic books, like you would see the difference, but like to this like the normal person, they would have noticed the difference, but like there was a lot of spacing in the bubbles and like stuff was too close together, and just like I just didn't vibe with it. So Hugo, the artist, he also agreed. He was like, yeah, let somebody else do it. It takes it off my plate, because again, when I didn't do my due diligence when he said he could do it all, I was like, fuck yeah, I don't have to do anything. Yeah. And then you realize, okay, maybe he shouldn't have done it all. He'll probably, agree that he probably shouldn't have done it all either. And then he just wanted to focus on the art more. And then, you get starry eyed because it's like, hell yeah, someone's going to do this. And on his end, it's like, yeah, someone's going to give me an entire book to fucking do. Like, hell yeah, I can do that. Then you just get sort of like towards the end of the thing and you're like, shit. Like, again, the biggest thing is like the turnaround from 1 to 2. Even though like it may be longer before I launch a Kickstarter, I want delivery from the end of Kickstarter to issue 2 to be quicker because the Kickstarter ended on Father's Day last year and I just got the books out. So, it's a little long for me and you get a little leeway when you do it your first time and people are just like, oh, you learn as you go. But then like you're sort of the expectation rises a little bit. And like, that's another thing. I sat with this thing for almost 10 years before it ever went out into the public. But like now I had to turn around and I'd been jotting stuff down, but within 3 weeks, I had to turn around and write a second issue when I had 10 years to write the first one. Right. So like, there's just like a different expectation and a different process now. And I don't know if you may get to this. Sorry, I have a podcast, so I like to talk a lot. It happens. I'm very long-winded. So I don't know how, again, I never read like how to write Marvel comics, do it the DC way. I never did any of that shit. I just was like, I read comic books my whole life. Like I can do this. And so I structured it in that way. And then like the classic like cliffhanger at the end. But like the way I've been writing all of this is moments like, okay, I want this specific thing and let's build out from that. And then issue 2 is very much like there are 3 specific moments that like instantly came to my head. And I was like, okay, like let's jot those down. And then like, let's extrapolate out and like, let's build out from there. And then you have a balance because you said, okay, so it's a quick read. Again, 10 months for 10 minutes at most of an endorphin hit. That's also another thing that's crazy about comics, but like we love the medium. So
right,
the amount of work versus like the time of enjoyment doesn't correlate. But like, there's just like, I can't even like really specify all the things I learned. It's just like, it's just one of those learn by doing things. Like I don't like if you launch one, yours could be way different. It could go so super smooth. And mine never was like, oh my gosh, but it was just like setback. It was just like all these things. And I'm a bit of a control freak. So like not being able to actively be like, okay, let me do this because I couldn't do it. So, it's one of those things you had to learn too. You had to dig deep in yourself and realize I don't know.
But dude, the final product, Polar Destroyer, man, like I wouldn't say this just for like seriously, like tons of people are always messaging me like, hey, can I come on the podcast? Like I have this comic, like, and some I've read and some I haven't. And like yours really stands out. Like I want to emphasize that. Like I'm not like the kind of person that's like, oh, every comic deserves to just be praised just because we read it or just because we have someone on the pod. Like it really does stand out. Like the art, of course, is the first thing that's going to draw your eye. It's a visual medium. It's a comic book. But your story really does back the art up. And I do want to stress that too. Like for your first comic and like, who am I? I'm just someone, I read a lot of comics, but your comic is amazing. Like it doesn't matter that it's your first. Like I think that the 10 years counts. It counts for something. Even if it takes, yes, maybe it does take you 10 minutes to read, but you know what? Even though it's a quick read, I read it a few times because it was that awesome, And also like to get someone's attention for 10 minutes nowadays is still pretty hard, I would say, especially for comics. Even to get someone to read your number 1, I think is difficult. And you got me to read yours. So props to that. And me and Cody were talking about it before you hopped on. We both really genuinely liked it.
Yeah.
It was a great comic.
For sure. Like, I mean, I've seen and read a lot more. Like, and I don't want to compare indie artists, but this is like one of the best I've ever read. Like that isn't put together by like a major, company put out by one of the big 4 or 5 or however many.
But if it said like one of the big publishers, you wouldn't blink twice.
Yeah, I honestly, so I read this. We're doing 2 interviews this week. I read this and then I was like, Anthony, this is the guy that's also written for like Marvel and DC as well, right? And he was like, no, this is his first comic. So yeah, dude, you're writing. It's great. And like I don't know if your ambition is to one day have this picked up by a major distributor, or like you want to continue on into writing comics as a career. But I think like if this is your start, both of those should be very feasible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're coming out of the gate swinging, Alex, like hard. Seriously, like, and I've been to a bunch of cons recently, and this is something me and Jake have talked about, and I'm not trying to dump on anybody. And I don't think because your stuff is so good, it shouldn't imply that we're dumping on someone else. But a lot of first issues, especially the art, are just lacking really hard. And maybe they didn't put in the time, or maybe they're just not talented enough. Like, they still got work to do, and that's fine too. But like, in today's day and age, when everyone has a comic and everyone has a Kickstarter, you need a comic like Polar Destroyer to get people buying. I really think that.
Wow, I appreciate it. I've never been good at taking compliments, so like that's also one of those things. Like I even wrote it in the book, in like the little editorial. I was like, I don't like. It makes me feel weird when people are like, "Dude, you're rad." I'm like,
no, it's cool. It's a cool comic.
It started out as a video game. That's how the concept started. Like I don't know if you ever played Shank.
Shank, no.
So it's like a side scroller beat 'em up, but it's very violent, and like the art style is very much like Batman the Animated Series, and that was sort of like what spawned it, because I was like super into it like when that came out, and I was like, that if I could just like see it in my head, like this would be dope to like do it this way. And then like, you know, eventually, like, I don't know, like this one is 5 issues. Like that's the goal right now, is to do 5 issues, finish this particular arc. Again, I have things jotted down for what would be like the second arc. I have things jotted down for the third arc. I got real like weird one time, and I was like, dude, let's do some characters for the third arc. Cause like a little bit of like spoilers. I mean, it's not spoilers because it's not written, but like Saga 1, Arc 1 is the North Pole. So like, if you don't know, the penguins don't live in the North Pole. Where do they live? They live in the South Pole. So like, let's run it to their house. Like they're in your home. Let's run it down south. Let's go to their place and fuck shit up. So then, okay, when you're doing that, then what happens? Well, let's go all over the world. Let's do that. Like, let's get other creatures involved. Like, I've got this concept for like a gorilla fighter, and it's literally like it's a gorilla that's like a gorilla fighter. Nice. So it's like, you know, just like, I don't know. I have the ending like of the whole thing. Like, it's so ridiculous, but I have it like mapped out. And then I've always been sort of creative in a sense. You know, I grew up watching wrestling, so like I was more fascinated with the storylines of wrestling than I was the actual wrestling, because like everyone's a great wrestler, right? Okay, cool. But like you gravitate towards like specific people and like the storylines that are being told. So like I had my own fig fed growing up. I'm an only child. I grew up from a broken home.
I did the same thing, dude. I did the same exact thing.
Well, you got to do it for real though.
And that, yeah.
So like I had to learn to play by myself because my dad was always working, and like I just spent a lot of time alone. And then I was like, well, you know, no siblings. I've got, you know, this and that. Like, you know, you read, I'm notorious for like not liking things. I'm like but like, that's not true. Like I like a lot of things. I just find that the majority of stuff that is out is not very good. It's just that like for every 10 bad things, there's one good thing. And I think that there's a lot of reasons that go into that. But I don't know. Like you just do it, you know, like I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just throw my hands up.
No, for sure. But your goal, are you going to, after you do the first 5 issues, are you going to try to do a trade of all 5?
I would love to do a trade. And honestly, you could make the case. Like, I think the foundation is set there really easily. This is not just me like pumping smoke up my own ass, but like you could do like a pretty rad, like 6 episode, like or even 10 episode, like animated series, but like geared towards like, think of Samurai Jack or like Primal.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Like adult oriented, like nice and tight. Like I don't need a universe. You don't need like just like boom, 10 episodes, 10 strong episodes. You could do 6, I don't know, whatever. But like, you know, it's not written that way, but I think that there's not a lot of fat on the book, and that was done intentionally. And again, like if you want to go into the future a little bit, like the next issue 2, that's where like there's like a little bit of pressure there because it's like you want to keep that, but also like the goal was always to do the first one. And then like I am very tunnel vision. It's like, okay, like this is cool if we can do all these other things, but like let's boom, like let's see this to the end, get to the end. And then now that that's done and it's out in the world and it's available, it's like, okay, well shit. Like the mass majority of people seem to like really like genuinely dig it. So like, let's keep going. Let's run it back. Let's do another one. And like, let's keep going. So issue 2 is a lot more, there's more dialogue in it. It's more, but not like, I'm not going to like bore the reader. Cause like, you also have to trust the reader when you're writing something like you don't really want to hold their hand. Like and I do think that sometimes not telling the audience something like works in your favor. Like, I don't think every question in the world needs to be answered. Sometimes, again, I always look at it as like Boba Fett is the prime example of like when the original Star Wars came out, everyone loved Boba Fett. And then like everyone had all these theories, which sort of like built his like lore and built his reputation. And everyone like liked him because he didn't really there wasn't a huge backstory for it. And then it's just like, then Disney gets a hold of it and it's like, whatever. So his coolness sort of like wears off, right? Like, so
no, I agree. Yeah.
One of the things is like, okay, so like you can see why the penguins and the bunny rabbits and like the seals and all these people are like together, but like, why is the wolf there? Like, why is Timber there?
Yeah, I love that character.
Yeah.
I love that character
so badass.
too. And I don't like, it was one of those things that came in late and I was just like, this is like the coolest fucking dude. Just not even the dude's a wolf. And like, I really like that character, but then it's like, do I explain why he's with them? Or is it just one of those, like, he's kind of an anti-hero. He's sort of just like, he's a smarmy wolf, whatever. Like the penguins have a clear goal, like what they're trying to do. What is his goal? Do we explore that? I don't know. But issue 2 is more of like, let's build the world. Let's set up, like, let's give you a little bit of exposition of like the penguins, like what they're doing. Let's build that dynamic between Jack and who we saw at the very end. And like, let's go from there, but like up the violence, up the action, like let's get real creative. I have a thought in my mind and I'm probably going to go through with it because I'm not going to do like another bust here. Like that's just too much. But Kickstarters, they like to like have a pledge where like you can put people in. We're not going to do that because they're all animals, but there's a character that is introduced in issue 2 that, now this is all subject to change, by the way, that is introduced that will die at the end of the issue. But if you pledge to a certain tier, there's going to be 3 ways to kill him and people get to vote. Sort of like
nice.
the Robin, does he
the
die?
The Jason Todd thing, yeah.
Sort of like inspired by that, but like, it's
sick.
basically like pick a fatality, essentially, is what it's going to be. Because I'm like a huge Mortal Kombat guy, and so like there's a lot of that is sort of in there. There's a lot more homages in issue 2 to like Terminator, Rambo, Mortal Kombat. Those sort of like more leaning into the 80s action, 90s actions movies, sort of it all, but still. I treat what I'm doing very seriously, but I understand the subject matter is not very serious. But I treat it seriously, but not serious enough.
You could feel that. You can feel that in the comic.
But it's not serious enough to where like I think that like this is Shakespeare, and that was always my pitch too. Is like I'm not writing Shakespeare. I'm writing about this cyborg polar bear. And so if you've ever seen the teaser for Terminator 2, like the 1 minute teaser, like that's what you can expect for like the first couple of pages of issue 2. So
nice.
Like I just hear that like theme playing over in my head when I was like writing it down.
That's awesome.
So on the show, I don't know if you know,
okay,
but whenever we talk about a comic or a movie or anything, we got to rate it on the Joe Pesci scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Joe Pesci scale goes from 1 Pesci's the lowest. That's our like Wonder Woman 1984 territory. You don't really want to be there.
That's Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Moon Knight. Yeah, Moon Knight. Oh yeah, Moon Knight's somehow lower than a 1. I think it might have the lowest score on the podcast.
I don't think
ever.
Cody knows this, but Moon Knight's my favorite character, like of all time.
Yeah, Moon Knight. We were actually talking. Maybe you will be able to convince me to like Moon Knight because
the character or the show.
The character.
Like, can you recommend a Moon Knight comic to be like, Cody, read this and know what's up about Moon Knight?
Start with the bottom, Charlie Huston and David Finch.
Okay.
That goes through 30 issues, Early stuff is hit or miss. If I know, I like based off like the limited knowledge of talking to you for 30 minutes, I can kind of gauge your taste a little bit. If you like violence, I mean, like Mark Spector, like literally carves a dude's face off with a crescent dart and wears it. So like, it's like weird shit like that.
Fuck.
The Jeff Lemire stuff's really good.
I read that's the only thing I've read is the Jeff Lemire stuff.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is so weird.
We loved it though.
I loved it. I loved it, but it wasn't enough. So prior to that, I just like didn't care about Moon Knight.
Sure.
And then I watched the show and was like, actually, I hate Moon Knight. And and then
I went through a whole existential crisis when that show came out.
Oh, just because you hated it so much?
Oh my god, I was like mad. Like I went through this like the stages of grief, like fucking full of hate, like sadness. Then like I started to cope, and then I was just like, whatever, it exists, like it's a thing. And then like for like 6 months after that show came out, every time I would like go into the store looking for like something, I'd have to talk about it. And it's just like, I don't want to, man. Like, like I hate this thing so much.
I hated it.
The bane of my existence.
I hated it.
The Jed McKay run is phenomenal. Like it's a great starting point. They're super quick reads. Jed understood the assignment and nailed it. It's not just saying that because I know Jed. He's been on my show a couple of times, but it's just like he actually does give a shit.
Yeah,
like, it's nice. Like you can tell. But like Vengeance the Moon Knight is out now. So like the original series was 30 issues, which is a Moon Knight 30 issues series is insane to me.
Yeah. I think we're getting an omnibus in October too. I just saw that today. Yeah.
Because before that, they almost always ended after like 13 or 14, just because like nobody gave a shit. They also weren't very good. And then like the Bemis run is avoided. Like he had a full on mental breakdown, like 5 issues into this thing. And it's like, he was not a comic book writer and like, it's messy. So, but that's what I would do.
Nice.
Start with the Houston stuff or Huston. I don't know how you say his last name. And then move on to Jed. But anyways, back to the Joe Pesci.
Oh, yes. So you don't want to be Moon Knight territory, but you do want to be in the 6 territory, right?
Okay.
6.
So like Goodfellas?
Yeah, Goodfellas is a 6 for sure.
We've actually never done a Goodfellas episode, but yeah, it would probably get a 6.
I mean, I'm speaking on me and Jake's behalf and saying yes, it would get a 6. You know?
I fucking love Goodfellas.
Yeah.
If Jake ate too many Flamin' Hot Cheetos that day, you never know. He might give it a 5.5 or something.
He ain't doing that. Jake's a slut for that era of Scorsese. I know Jake. He would shame me if I didn't stand up for him giving Goodfellas a 6 right now.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "Do you guys even know me?"
But see, here's the thing. We've also given, like, the 6 is flexible, right? I think our very first 6 was the Mortal Kombat movie.
Okay.
Yeah. The
95, the 95
2021 one.
The 2021 one. Like, right when it came out, we did an episode. The podcast was fresh.
Yeah. You didn't like the 2021 one?
I like parts of it. I don't like Cole Young and I don't like Arcana. Get rid of those two and it's a great movie.
Oh, yeah, we agree with that. We agree with that. That's exactly what we said.
Yeah,
but the Robin Shou movie with Christopher Lambert 95 is the closest to like what the story is and what it's supposed to be. It's Enter the Dragon.
Oh, that movie's perfect. We have an episode for every Mortal Kombat. Well, not Annihilation, but
yeah,
good ones.
We haven't done we should do Annihilation just to do it, just to get it all covered.
But it's fun to talk about terrible movies.
Yeah.
That's it's easier to joke about it and just be like, But this comic wasn't terrible. I'm going to say right off the bat that, again, like I don't do a lot of Kickstarters, honestly. Like I buy a lot of comics. I want to do more. Like I want to definitely back more people. But yours was one of the first where I'm like, all right, there's good stuff out there that this is the only way I'm finding it. And I'm so glad I found Polar Destroyer. I'm so glad we started talking. So I'm giving Polar Destroyer a 6.
Damn, that's great.
Yeah, dude. I mean, genuinely, I think this... I don't think if this is something like if you continue to put out issues as good as the first one, I think the only reason it wouldn't be picked up by one of the major labels is just because they haven't heard of it, and that would be the only like getting it in front of the right person's faces would be the only because quality it's there. It's already there. So easy money 6, man. And I'm not just saying that. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will tell you the hardest thing about a Kickstarter, if you ever want to start one, is the social networking aspect, because Al Gore and his rhythm is impenetrable. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't have a ton of followers, and like I tweet less. And I started that Kickstarter right as like Elon buys it and like runs it into the ground. So I'm like,
oh fuck,
right, like great, awesome, but it's still. You get like a thing at the end, like it tells you where all your traffic comes from, and even all things considered, that's where the majority of the traffic came from, was just promoting on Twitter. But like how do you do it, right? Like because if you tweet too much, it gets buried. If you don't tweet enough, nobody sees it. Like again, like I got incredibly fortunate with like specific instances in which I would tweet and someone would pick it up. A lot of favors were called in. A lot of like, hey, like, a lot of people just like a lot of people just like, oh, this is a neat thing. And then like, again, like seeing it through to the end. And I do know that like in promoting it since it's been done, and like just there's been more people who've been like, well, I'll just wait for a physical. And it's like, okay, because people seem to like, as much as digital is the future, people still want that tangible thing. And then like I went to the local comics shop here and I gave them 20 issues, and I was there for 25 minutes and sold 3 of them in 25 minutes. And it's just like, just like walking in the door, like, hey, and it's, I'm not a car salesman, but it's like, I did this thing, and people are like, you did this? So like having that tangible thing I hope is going to help me further, because like, it's no longer a concept. It's a proven commodity, if you will. And, like I'm going to the local con here, and like I'm just going to take some issues and like give them to people of notoriety. Samoa Joe's going to be there, and I'm just going to fucking give it to Samoa Joe.
Fuck yeah.
Nice.
Gail is going to be in town for free comic book day. She's like, it'll be like 35 minutes away, and I'm just going to go and like give it to her. I'm like, hey, I'm not asking you to do anything with this other than like read it. If you like it, I would love your support for issue 2. Like word of mouth is like the best way to do it, but like how do you conquer that beast? Like you can tell somebody this is the most rad thing ever, but getting someone to fucking actually buy it or read it is near impossible. Like I don't know how to do it. Like I can't make you do something. So
yeah, no, I mean
whoa, put the gun away, okay? Well,
no, but I genuinely, I book and produce and do stand-up comedy shows, and the things that you're describing are like, it's the exact same. It's like that is currently a barrier across art forms for like, I feel like everybody right now, like everything that you're saying is really resonating. Like I can book these great shows and incredible headliners, great locals, but how do I get people in seats? And honestly, most of the time, the way that works best for me is like directly just DMing people, which I don't I mean, I do it, but it sucks to do. But just DMing people and being like, hey, there's a great headliner, 5-6 days from now. I mean, you can do the same, but then like what you're saying, everything about like going to the place, it makes a difference.
I did that with the Kickstarter. Like you would see someone like, this comic book is great. And it's just like, I don't like jumping in conversations that don't involve me, but like, that's what social media is. Right. And so you just like, let me just slide right in. Hey, you looking for something cool to support, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. Like that is, if I could get someone to just like do all the social stuff, like I would be golden. Like I can do everything else. But as admirable as it is that I did what I did, basically, I mean, again, I had lots of help, but all of the behind the scenes, all of the putting the book together, all of like just the majority of it falls on my plate, right? Like I ran the Kickstarter and I paid an artist. It wasn't like it was me and Hugo, even though Hugo's still part of the project. Like he still gets, he's still credited for it. I couldn't do it without him, but like I'm the one that has the money. I'm the one that has to ship it out. I'm the one that has to do all the fulfillment. I'm the one that has to promote it. I'm the one that has to do that. Like it's a lot. Like it gets to a point, like there was a point in December where like nothing was going right. And I was like, I'm going to finish this and I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then like, as you get closer, you're like, man, fuck that guy 3 weeks ago. What's he talking about? Like, whatever, like you can do this, and then there is an indescribable feeling for like this thing that you do And doing it the way that I did it is very like, of course, if someone gives me $10,000, like I'm going to take it, right? Like, yeah, I'll, you know what I mean? But like doing it the way I did it is great. And like, I do think that like why 5 issues? Well, because I think it works better if you set that barrier and you work within those parameters. I sort of use that analogy. And again, like issue 2, I have what it is. Issue 3 is Timber versus Jack. Issue 4 is 001 versus Jack. And it's going to go back to those first 4 pages of the issue 1. And then issue 5 is the finale. It might be an oversize. I don't know. But like, again, there's the points that we build out from. And then so like you lay those down, like that's the foundation. That's where we go. But I sort of use it as like the MCU in terms of like, you know, everyone has their varying opinions on what it is. But like, to me, the MCU was better when they didn't have the X-Men, they didn't have Spider-Man, they didn't have all these properties. So they were forced to be creative. They were forced to work within a confine, and it made stuff better. Whereas like now they have Disney Plus, now they have all these other things. And like now they're just throwing shit against the wall. And like,
look what that created, Moon Knight.
Yeah. And amongst other things. And like, there's a whole like tonal shift where it's more about the quantity over the quality of stuff. And like, you know, again, 10 years ago, bro, like the MCU was like the thing. And like most people in my friends group don't give a shit anymore. Like everyone's just sort of tapped out.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to,
this podcast included.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, we were bombarded with it, but also like the quality went down. Like remember 2020 when there was no Marvel properties and like we didn't really miss anything. Like Black Widow came out and it was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then like WandaVision was like, okay, it was different. But then it was just like, it just kept turning. It kept turning.
Yeah.
But again, like I think forcing yourself to work within a barrier makes you more creative rather than having like all these toys to play with. You only have 3 toys to play with. So this is sort of the approach I take. But again, if somebody wants to give me like $10,000-$20,000 to like finish it, like I'll you know, I don't care. Like give it to me.
I totally agree with that approach, though. Alex, this has been a great talk. Tell people again where they could find Polar Destroyer, where they could find you if you want them to.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't ever want to get to a point where people are burning my pictures on Twitter. So
yeah, that's fucking crazy.
You can find the comic at polardestroyer.bigcartel.com. You can find me on Twitter at Ozdog12, OZZDOG12. That's pretty much my online moniker everywhere. I've set up a Substack, but I'm not done with it. But like, I'm going to set it out as like a way to use it as like an email chain, I guess, or like an email newsletter, I guess. Because again, like I don't want to like cold call and cold email all these people. Hey, you know, and just, I guess I don't have a date for the Kickstarter yet because I'm sort of just like starting. And again, I would like to have half the book done before I do a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying to capitalize on the fact that like it's out and then like, you know, there's a con here in February. Like it's 9 months away. Like I would love to be able to do that and have issue 2 there. I don't know if it's possible, but yeah, I'm not hard to find. You just hashtag Polar Destroyer and like you'll find me. You'll find it. So
hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here, bud. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, seriously.
Bro, thanks for having me. I got to get you guys on the podcast sometime. We're doing episode 250 this week, so like that's kind of crazy too.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, congrats.
Never missed a week. And it's just like that's insane too. But yeah, we need to get you guys on there and shoot this shit.
Hell yeah.
Comics and Chronic and Spaghetti Policy. Let's go.
Yeah. The crossover event nobody asked for, you know? But everybody wants.
Yes. Thing you didn't know you wanted until you got it.
All right. Alex Osborne, everybody.
Yes. And by the way, you actually said my last name correctly. Most people say it incorrectly.
Nice.
Oh, really? Good thing Cody didn't say it then.
Yeah. I'm notoriously for mispronouncing everything.
Most people spell it wrong too. There's no U in my name. I'm not Ozzy.
Nice.
There's an E. There's a silent E at the end too. So it's all weird. It's just weird shit. But yeah, thanks so much for having me and let me like talk about it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Anytime, dude.
Take care, bud.
Come back when issue 2 comes out.
I will.
Alrighty. Peace.
Am I supposed to leave?
Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jake FH.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's Comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo!
Peace.